There is a video on Paul's phone of you and him on the farm that night.
Picture this. You return home on a Monday evening and your family is nowhere to be seen. You search the house, growing more anxious with each call they fail to answer. Finally, you find the bodies of your wife and son strewn on the ground outside. You can't even tell how many times they've been shot. You dial 911, but before you say where you are or what you've found, you introduce yourself.
Hampton County 911, where's your emergency?
This is Alec Murdaugh.
Most would agree this is a strange priority, but not for Alec Murdaugh, a man who kept his grandfather's solicitor's badge on the dashboard to ingratiate himself with any police officer who pulled him over. With Alec himself being a lawyer, this will put him in a unique position to stay one step ahead of police. But even a lawyer of 27 years can't think of everything. Neither can you, but luckily you don't have to, thanks to this video's sponsor, Aura. In 2020, identity theft cost people in the US $56 billion, with one person becoming the victim of identity fraud every 14 seconds. Even several members of the AWOL team have been personally affected by data breaches, which have become increasingly common over the last few years. Aura uses their technology to identify data brokers and automatically submit opt-out requests on your behalf, saving you from junk mail, email lists, and robocalls. Aura will also monitor your passwords and alert you if any of your sensitive details have been compromised, also including a VPN, identity theft monitoring, parental controls, and malware protection. You can sign up for a free trial now to see where your personal information has been leaked and take control of your online security.
Okay, and so give me the address again.
It's 4147 Moselle Road. I've been up to it now. It's bad.
Okay. How did they shoot? Did they shoot themselves?
Oh, no. Hell no.
Okay, and are they breathing?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and you said it's your wife and your son?
My wife and my son.
On June 7th, 2021, 52-year-old Maggie and 22-year-old Paul were found dead at the kennels on the family's 1,700-acre hunting property. By the time Alec was found guilty of murdering his wife and son, authorities and the media had uncovered fraud to the tune of millions of dollars, a botched suicide-for-hire plot, and connections to 2 other suspicious deaths. It's been dubbed South Carolina's trial of the century. But there's something that sets Alec apart from contemporaries like Jodi Arias, Casey Anthony, and O.J. Simpson. Between 1920 and 2006, 3 generations of Murdaugh family exclusively served as Low Country's circuit solicitor, the region's chief law enforcement officer. Having followed his predecessor's footsteps to join the family's century-old law firm, Alec's experience and position in the community saturates his attempts to get away with murder.
Oh, should have known. He's been being threatened by my son. Had a boat sex. He's been being threatened for months.
In February 2019, Paul Murdaugh allegedly drove his father's boat while intoxicated, crashing into a bridge at high speed and claiming the life of 19-year-old Mallory Beach. Alec seems convinced his wife and son were murdered to avenge Mallory and retrieves a gun to showcase his fear of some vigilante shooter lurking nearby.
I'm going back to my house just to get a gun just in case.
He discloses his weapon without prompt from the operator in an effort to appear transparent. As an attorney, he understands this cooperative behavior is only convincing if present from the outset. So this is also the first thing he says to responding officer Sergeant Daniel Green.
Sir, I wanted to let you know because of the scene, I did go get a gun and bring it down here.
It's in your vehicle? Do you have any guns on you at all?
No, sir. It's leaning up against the side of my car.
Okay. You're fine, man. You're fine. Turn around for me.
I don't have any guns.
Okay. Yes, sir. I see that. Okay. This is your wife and son?
And son.
Okay.
It's bad. Check the pulses.
Alec suggests he knows the situation is bad because he checked their pulses. An innocuous connection until you consider the state of the bodies. Both victims were shot in the head. And to put it delicately, their wounds made their condition far more obvious than a pulse could. It's odd, then, that Alec doesn't focus on the gruesome visuals, though checking for a pulse does have the advantage of accounting for any DNA or blood later found on Alec.
This is the firearm you brought from inside the house?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I went and got. This is a long story. My son was in a boat wreck a few months back. He's been getting threats. Most of it's been benign stuff we didn't take serious.
Okay.
He's been getting punched. I know that's somebody. I know that's what it is.
Okay. When did you get home? Right when you called, or did you go to the house first? Where is the house?
I came to the house first. My mom has late stages Alzheimer's, and my dad is in the hospital.
Alec brings up the boat wreck, a motive that points away from him and his visit with his mother, his alibi, before asking if authorities have even checked the bodies. It's clear where his priorities lie, and his conversations with investigators are peppered with moments where he seems to remember he's supposed to be grieving and launches into sobs. Yet despite all his supposed crying, when giving a statement to Special Agent David Owen and Colton County Detective Laura Rutland, he elects to clean his glasses with what should be a very wet and snotty tissue.
All right, Mr. Murdaugh, state your full name for me, please.
Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
And spell your last name so I get it correct.
Murdaugh.
All right. And you go by Alec?
Yes, sir.
We'd like to note here, if for no other reason than petty amusement, that our suspect's full name is Alexander. He spells his preferred name A-L-E-X, yet chooses to pronounce it Alec.
And date of birth, Mr. Murdaugh. And sir, what was your name?
Yeah, Danny Henderson.
Okay.
The man sitting behind Agent Owen is Danny Henderson, Alec's personal attorney and a partner at the Murdaugh law firm. We've covered numerous interrogations where a conviction could have been dodged if a lawyer was there to advise the suspect, or at least convince them to remain silent. Alec is mindful of this peril, retaining a lawyer even for this informal interview, mere hours after the bodies were found.
All right. As I stated, I'm David Owen and Laura Rutland with Colton County, and I'm with MacLeod. I hate to have to do this.
I understand.
Yeah.
I totally
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
So you don't have any problem
Yeah.
with it.
So, just start at the top, take your time.
Like when I came back here,
Alec understands investigators typically deal with abrasive and outright dangerous situations, and hopes his empathy will be charming enough in contrast to distract from his less subtle tactics. Tactics like opening his story with the phrase, "When I got back here," anxious to affirm he wasn't present during the crime. Of course, Alec is no doubt aware that forensic evidence will in fact place him at the scene. We now see he wastes no time in explaining any transfer of blood, fingerprints, or touch DNA.
and I ran over to Maggie, and actually, I think I tried to turn Paul over first. I tried to turn him over, and I don't know, I figured it out. His cell phone popped out of his pocket. I started to try to do something with it, thinking maybe, but then I put it back down really quickly. Then I went to my wife, and I could see.
Did you touch Maggie at all?
I did. I touched them both.
Okay.
I tried to I tried to do it as limited as possible, but I tried to take their pulse on both of them. And, I called 911 pretty much right away.
Alec makes a point to minimize how much he touched the bodies, performing a sincere desire to preserve evidence. He claims to have called 911 right away to similarly show an urgency to get help. But based on data later extracted from his phone and SUV, Alec arrived at the kennels 17 seconds before he dialed 911. That's not a lot of time to check the bodies.
What made you come out here tonight?
I went to, my mom's a late stage Alzheimer's patient. My dad's in the hospital. My mom gets anxious when she does. I went to check on them.
Though Agent Owen has asked why Alec decided to check the kennels, Alec embarks on a tangent about visiting his mother Elizabeth, explaining that she suffers from Alzheimer's and was especially distressed that night. He made a similar aside in Sergeant Green's body cam footage, foregrounding not just his alibi, but a sympathetic image of him as an attentive son caring for his ailing mother. If investigators buy into this characterization, perhaps they'll be more forgiving when he fails to answer a direct question.
Maggie's a dog lover, and she fools with the dogs. And I knew she'd gone to the kennel. I was at the house. I left the house and went to my mom's for just a little while. Tried to call her when I left. Texted her, no response. So I came back up here and I drove up and saw and called.
Had Maggie and Paul been arguing over anything?
No.
What was their relationship like?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. How about yours and Maggie's?
Wonderful. I mean, I'm sure we had little things here and there, but we had a wonderful marriage, wonderful relationship.
Alec is clever enough to avoid an unreasonably rosy depiction of his marriage, admitting they had small conflicts like any other couple. In fact, the testimony of their housekeeper would later corroborate that things in the Murdaugh household were largely unremarkable. But this still doesn't capture the whole picture. At the time of her death, Maggie was living separately from Alec, in a beachfront cottage over an hour away. Just 6 weeks before the murders, she had met with a divorce lawyer. Even if they weren't outright fighting, Maggie was looking for a way out.
Have y'all been having any problems out here? Trespassers, people breaking in?
None that I know of. The only thing that what comes to my mind is my son Paul was in a boat wreck a couple years ago. And there's been he was charged with being arrested for being the driver. There's been a lot of negative publicity about that, and there's been a lot of people online, just really vile stuff. But when Paul's out and about, I mean, people routinely, I don't think I know the full story, so I don't think they give it to me, but I mean, he's been punched and hit and just attacked a lot. So, but I mean, nothing like this.
Alec returns to the boat wreck theory, though his explanation is notably vague. Hearing that someone was in a boat wreck, then harassed and attacked on the street, doesn't make much sense without the context of Paul being at the helm and severely intoxicated. Yet, in a testament to the prominence of the Murdaugh family, the investigators don't seem confused. Attempts to shield Paul from justice spurred widespread backlash from the public, and the special treatment he seemed to receive when finally arrested fed this outrage. It would be safe to assume any local officer or agent is familiar with the case. Until now, it was also safe for Alec to assume his rapport with authorities would continue to hold him above the law.
So is there anybody that you can think of that we need to talk to tonight? Is there a name that comes to mind?
I mean, I can't tell you anybody that I'm overly suspicious of off the top of my head.
Okay.
I mean, this is such a stupid thing. I'm even embarrassed to say it. But it just didn't make any sense. I just hired a guy out here, and he wasn't cutting the mustard, but I hadn't told him this yet. Paul's been working with him a lot. He killed the sunflower seeds in our dove field just recently, which is why Paul was here doing this. He told Paul a story the other day about how when he was in high school, he got in a fight with some black guys. and the FBI undercover team observed him fighting those guys and put him on an undercover team with 3 Navy SEALs, and that their job was to kill radical Black Panthers, and they did that from Myrtle Beach to Savannah. Now, I really don't think this guy, is probably the person, but that's just so freaking.
Yeah, that's kind of far-fetched story.
It's weird. But he was off today.
Okay.
He took his daddy to the doctor.
What's his name?
CB Rowe.
ROWE?
Yeah, and I sent him a message to text me earlier today about the sunflowers, and he called me back when I was on the way to my mom's house.
Did you talk to him at that time?
Briefly, I was on the phone with a lawyer friend of mine named Chris Wilson from Bamberg, so I told him I'd call him back tomorrow, see him in the morning.
When you briefly talked to Mr. Rowe, what was his demeanor or attitude? Or
I mean, it seemed normal. I mean, I asked him about the sunflowers, and so, I'm sure he's a little bit.
Where does he live?
I don't exactly know. Somewhere in Bronson.
Okay. Do you have his phone number?
I do. And I really do not think, in all honesty, that it's him, but I know y'all got to check it out. But
as Alec continues to build rapport with Owen, he walks a fine line between steering investigators toward alternative suspects while avoiding outlandish theories. Offering information about other suspects will certainly bolster his helpful, justice-seeking persona, but he must be careful to keep his suggestions realistic, lest investigators realize they're nothing more than a diversion.
Going back to the boat incident, anybody on that boat really have a hard-on for Paul that you would think would come after him, or know of any direct threats from people on the boat?
I don't know of any direct threats between any of the people on the boat specifically, but I do think there's been a small amount of yip-yap between a couple of them, but not recently.
Okay.
Most of this was stuff from people that Paul didn't really know.
Okay.
These are dangerous waters for Alec. If the boat wreck truly was what triggered the attack on his family, logically the most likely culprits would be the loved ones most devastated by the loss of Mallory Beach. But if he convinces investigators to properly scrutinize these people, they'll quickly discover nothing more than rumors link them to the crime. To preserve the boat wreck as a feasible motive, Alec portrays the broader community as hateful enough that a random person could exact revenge against Paul.
What did you do today? Were you at the office or?
Nope, I was home. I came home. Paul and I messed around. I was up at the house. I laid down, took a nap on the couch, probably, 25, 30 minutes. I got up, I called Maggie, didn't get an answer, and I left to go to my mom's. She had said she might ride with me, but she normally doesn't when I go over there. And I think I texted her. And she's very good about answering the phone, so that was odd, or calling me back. So that was odd, but it wasn't that big a deal.
Around what time was that?
What time was what?
That you sent her a text message.
Phone data is one of many resources Alec offers freely to curry favor with investigators. His profession grants him an understanding of how phones can be used to verify evidence like his timeline and whereabouts. We can see from his activity how he's attempted to shape this data to his advantage. Alec's phone shows no activity from 8:09 to 9:02 p.m., during which he claims to have taken a nap. After waking, he tries to call his wife 3 times between 9:04 and 9:07. It's a little odd that she doesn't answer, but Alec purports there is no cause for concern and lets Maggie know via text that he's off to check on his mother. As he makes the 15-minute drive, he calls his eldest son Buster, brother John, as well as fellow attorney and close friend Chris Wilson. Thanks to these calls, all 3 were later able to testify that nothing seemed out of sorts when they spoke with Alec. On his way back, Alec calls Paul and Maggie between 9:45 and 9:46, asking Maggie to call him via text. After arriving home, he tries to call Maggie again at 10:03, but with an empty house and no word from his wife, by now his worry is supposedly growing. Remembering they were at the kennels when he left, Alec drives there and discovers their bodies. Finally, at 10:06 p.m., he calls 911. Although Alex kept careful track of what his phone data would show, his downfall would come in the form of phone data he couldn't have possibly accounted for. The first real test of his ability to keep this story straight comes just 3 days later. Given Alex's first interview took place mere meters from the bodies on June 10th, SLED agent Jeff Croft joins Owen to clarify Alex's account in a calmer setting.
And take me through your day.
Monday morning, did I do Monday morning? We had some big motions coming up in a Dominion Energy case. I was getting ready for those. And I was getting ready for some motions. I'm a defendant in a civil case involving my son. I told you about the boat wreck.
Broaching the boat wreck isn't such a dubious choice now that Owen is aware of this theory. But here, Alec mentions another piece of the scandal. A month after the accident, Mallory Beach's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Murdaughs. If it weren't for Maggie and Paul's deaths, Alec would have been required to attend a hearing on June 10th. The date of this very interview. The purpose of this hearing was partly to determine if his finances should be exposed for review, and Alec would be acutely aware that this would lay bare the millions of dollars he'd siphoned and stolen from his clients, his law firm, and even his closest friends. It was an existential threat, to say the least, perhaps one that could spur dramatic action in the hopes of distracting authorities and buying time.
There's a wild cat that lives around that house. Okay. I'm pretty sure it was the cat that ran from my car, but I never had the impression it was a person, but there was something.
Okay.
But I really don't think, I'm just throwing that out there because it was in my mind.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
When suspects divert attention to another culprit, they often feign confidence in what they've seen, offering details to lend their story authenticity. For much of Nathaniel Schimmel's interrogation, he maintains that he specifically saw a balaclava-wearing attacker. But Alec Murdaugh dismisses his own suspicions as quickly as he makes them. He presents his vision and memory as fallible, not to cast doubt on his account, but to leave enough room that he can't yet be trapped by mistakes and inconsistencies. His readiness to be proven wrong also plays up his self-awareness and sensibility, steering clear of the kind of conceit that makes a story sound rehearsed.
What was the biggest issue you had with Paul?
Irresponsibility. He was ADHD. He was bad about jumping from, and he had so many wonderful qualities now, but he was bad about jumping from, he'd start this, maybe not quite finish it, do something else. And, you'll find out from his friends he had clothes strung out all over the state. He did that with clothes. He did that with guns. He did that with my boats.
This topic also gives Alec a chance to bring up the fact that Paul would often leave guns lying around their property, an idea he'll return to repeatedly. Should evidence show Paul and Maggie were killed with a Murdaugh gun, Alec has the grounds to dismiss this as the culprit stealing one of the many that Paul misplaced. As a bonus, this explanation allows Alec to deny having further information on the guns and where they were taken from. Paul was the one who lost them after all.
being in law enforcement for so long and working these type cases, and I don't know the Arlington area, but talking to Colleton County and seeing the property and how isolated it is, finding somebody that's just going to randomly come up there that late at night that doesn't know the property, that's, so of course I have to look within and then start working my way out.
So you feel like it's not random?
This attempt to appear oblivious isn't exactly subtle, especially given Alec has practically insisted the boat wreck motivated the killer. But this crude question is still worthwhile, giving him the chance to gauge Owen and Croft's current theory, the effectiveness of his deception, and how he should act moving forward. Based on how much information they now share with him, the investigators certainly don't give Alec the impression he's under much scrutiny. That is, until 2 months later. After examining evidence including the Murdaugh family phones, police will invite Alex for another interview on August 11th under the guise of updating him on the case. This is where the interrogation will truly begin.
I know we've got a lot to talk about. You have millions of questions. But before we get started with your questions, this has been going on for over 2 months. And we've done a lot of work.
I know you have.
And I've got some more questions that I need to get clarifications on.
Sure.
Okay? So we'll start with that.
Wait a minute.
Yes, sir.
Maybe I'm mistaken.
This rather curt man to Alec's left is Corey Fleming, godfather to Alec's son Buster, and another member of his attorney entourage. Though Alec hasn't been detained and Corey isn't formally serving as his lawyer, Corey isn't afraid to be abrasive on behalf of his friend. This allows Alec to maintain a meek and cooperative persona, while Corey tactlessly protects him from manipulation in a strange imitation of good cop, bad cop. Though, ironically, Corey will later be arrested for financial crimes committed alongside Alec. So it's closer to good suspect, bad suspect.
Thought we were coming here so you can update him on what's going on.
And I intend to do that as
Okay,
we
let's
go.
do that first.
Okay.
All right, let's
Well,
do that first.
the update is I'm doing the investigation, and I have some questions that I would like some answers to. And I mean, certainly if I ask the question, if you don't want to answer it, you don't have to answer it.
No, I'm fine with that.
Okay. I mean, it's more clarifications of the 2 interviews you've already given me.
Totally understand.
Okay.
Just wait 1 second.
Yeah.
Wait 1 second. All right. I need for you to tell me, are you going to give us information, or are we just here for you to ask questions?
I'm going to give you some information.
Right. Why can't you give us information first?
Some of the information that you're asking about are in my questions. And as we go through, you'll see.
Okay.
I don't mind it.
I know you don't, but I can't. I mean, I'm a friend, but I'm also a lawyer, and I like to know what we're doing. I like to understand what we're talking about. I need you to answer this question. Are you asking him questions to further your investigation, or are you asking him questions because you think that he's a suspect? I need a straight answer.
I am asking these questions to further my investigation.
All right. Does that mean that you're not asking him these questions as a suspect?
Good. Say.
Because I'm not comfortable with you asking him questions as a suspect when I came here with the thought that you were going to be telling him where you are in the investigation, what it is you've done, seen, uncovered, whatever. That's why we came here.
Well, let me respond to your question. Yeah. It may not be a direct answer that you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And I've told Alec this when we first met. Any homicide investigation You start with the closest person and or the person who found the deceased. Both cases, that's Alec. Everybody stays in that investigation until we can get them out.
Given Corey's own law firm predominantly handles family law, DUI cases, and personal injury lawsuits, there's little he can do to scrutinize this explanation of how felony murder investigations work. But despite their assurances to Corey, it will become clear throughout this interview that the agents have far more reason to doubt Alec than his relation to the victims.
I cannot get Alec out.
Okay. All right. That's a reasonable statement. I don't have any problem with that statement. That's fine. Everybody in the United States of America has an opinion on this case. And because I know everybody, I know it's a bunch of bullshit. I can't imagine that y'all are going to be asking about nonsense in the internet.
No.
Well,
I mean, just like you, I'm aware of what's out there.
Yeah.
I have not read every article. I don't care to read every article because they're not doing the investigation.
That's
I
right.
am.
That's right.
All things considered, it's not unreasonable for Alec and his associates to be troubled by how media coverage could impact this investigation. Of course, the boat wreck and subsequent lawsuit have long been a hot piece of gossip. Then there's the suspicious death of a housekeeper on the Murdaugh property in 2018, where Alec promised to aid her family in a wrongful death lawsuit, only to keep the $4.3 million settlement for himself. On June 22nd, state officials reopened an investigation to the hit-and-run death of Stephen Smith in 2015, after years of speculation that Buster Murdaugh was involved. If that weren't enough, just 3 weeks before this interview, SLED released Alec's 911 call, much to the delight of a public eager to analyze it on a cellular level. With all these scandals on Alec's mind, it's frankly impressive how consistently he sticks to his story, at least until he's backed into a corner.
What time did Maggie get back home that night?
Later. Maggie was supposed to be coming home. I've since found out she was worried about me and me worried about my dad. And so she came home.
So what kind of surprised you that she came back?
That didn't totally surprise me. She'd let me know earlier that she was coming home. But then I found out later why she came home.
If at any point in this video you found Alec's emotional displays too raw, too compelling to be false, what he's just revealed will burst that illusion. We've already established that Maggie was living at a different property at this time, but her reason for visiting the hunting estate was far from secret to Alec. Maggie's sister, Marion Proctor, would testify that it was Alec who asked his wife to return to the family home so she could accompany him to visit his parents. Alec's father, Randolph III, had just been hospitalized, so Marion, in the last conversation she'd ever have with her sister, encouraged her to be there for Alec during this difficult time. But the idea that Maggie's visit was unexpected serves Alec's narrative much better. How could he have planned to kill her if he didn't know she'd be home?
And after dinner, Maggie and Paul went to the kennels, or?
You know, I don't know exactly how that went. I stayed on the couch and I dozed off. So, and then I got up.
Did you watch TV that night?
I know the TV was, I believe the TV was on.
Luckily for Alec, he did indeed previously claim to have dozed off while watching TV. Despite his hesitant answer, he's successfully avoided an inconsistency that could cause significant trouble down the line. Alec is likely conscious that investigators would be able to confirm or invalidate his timeline based on the broadcast time of any specific show he watched. Hence, his decidedly vague answer. Alec has taken great care to account for the many and varied avenues that can generate evidence, but there's one resource he's failed to exert control over: Paul's phone.
There is a video on Paul's phone of you and him on the farm that night, and you were in khaki pants and a dress shirt. You were playing with a tree.
I don't remember playing with a tree.
Yeah.
The video in question was uploaded to Paul's Snapchat at 7:56 p.m. Owen maintains a calm tone during this confrontation, and it's certainly no smoking gun that Alec got changed at some point that night. There's not much pressure applied by the agents here, but this evidence would be deeply unsettling for Alec. And we can gain some insight into why, thanks to their housekeeper of more than a decade, Blanca Turabiate Simpson. Blanca was so far entrenched in the lives of the Murdaugh family that she could list each specific item of clothing Alec owned, and would testify that she never again saw the blue polo shirt in this video. Furthermore, in the months following the murders, Alec disputed her memory of what he wore that day, attempting to persuade her that he only ever wore the Vineyard Vines branded t-shirt. But Blanca remembers the blue polo, and we're left to wonder why Alec fought to hide those clothes.
The question in that is, when I met you that night, you were in shorts and a t-shirt. At what point in that evening did you change clothes?
I'm not sure. It would have been...
Before dinner or after dinner?
No, it would have been... What time of day was that? I would have thought I'd already changed.
There's not a time stamp on it because there's so many posts, but I want to say it looks to be about dusk. So that would have been 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Before Alec can counter this confrontation, he probes for details about when the video was taken. With the power of hindsight, it's obvious that without this information, any answer he gives could jeopardize the integrity of his timeline. But in the context of this interview, it's still a minor issue, so Owen doesn't dwell on it. He pushes onwards to the next confrontation up his sleeve.
These are just some maps I pulled off of Google.
Okay.
What route did you take from Moselle to your mom's?
I would have gone to the right on Moselle Road, 63, into Barnville.
Unbeknownst to Alec, Owen is likely confirming his route to see if he passed the stretch of road where Maggie's phone was eventually found. Better yet, investigators will eventually extract data from Alec's SUV to confirm the exact times and locations that his vehicle was parked, driven, and connected to his iPhone. A caregiver to Alec's parents called him that morning, suggesting he visit to comfort his mother in the wake of his father's hospitalization. But by the time Alec arrived at around 9:30 p.m., when another caregiver, Shelley Smith, had taken over for the night shift, his mother was asleep and did not wake for the 20 minutes Shelley estimated Alec was there. During the trial, Shelley testified that Alec approached her on the day of Paul and Maggie's funeral and attempted to convince her he visited for 30 to 40 minutes. He eventually stooped to bribery, offering to help fund Shelley's upcoming wedding and name-dropping mutual contacts he could influence in her favor. Though Alec now tells Owen he visited his mother for up to an hour, the same car data will show he was only there for 20 minutes.
I've got information that Paul was on the phone and Maggie was heard in the background and you were heard in the background.
Here, Owen refers to a phone conversation between Paul and his close friend Rogan Gibson. Rogan's Labrador Cash was at the Murdaugh kennels, and the friends were discussing whether the dog's tail might be injured.
And that was prior to 9 p.m.
I heard Rogan Gibson ask me if I was up there. He said he thought it was me.
Was it you?
At 9 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
No, sir. Not if my times are right.
think it could have been?
I have no idea.
And Rogan's been around your family for pretty much all of his life.
Oh, absolutely.
And he recognizes your voice.
Alec denies this with far more conviction than the topics of his clothing or timeline. His confidence makes sense, because regardless of how long Rogan has known the family, it was ultimately his word against Alec's. But what neither Alec nor the agents know at this point was Paul's phone would unearth yet more evidence. Paul didn't just call Rogan, he tried to send his friend a video.
Get back! Get back! Quit, Cash. Come. Quit. It's okay. Come here. It's not that bad. Come here, Cash. Shit. Come here. Post it. Cash.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth.
Hey, Bubba.
That's a guinea.
This is a chicken. Come here, Cash. Cash.
With poor reception hindering their phone call, Paul recorded this video of Cash at 8:44 p.m., but he never had the chance to send it. By 8:50, Maggie and Paul's phones show the last signs of outgoing activity. Neither will ever answer another call or open another text. With Alec's voice booming in the background just minutes earlier, it's indisputable he was there when things went terribly wrong. He'll maintain his innocence when finally indicted in July 2022, pleading not guilty on 2 counts of murder. When his trial commenced in January 2023, he professed it still, even in the face of a prosecution presenting a motive as ridiculous as the man himself. Alec needed to rid himself of the boat wreck lawsuit, lest the true extent of his financial crimes come to light, and his wealth, family, and reputation decay while the world watches. He figured if he suffered some great tragedy, surely no one would bother pursuing the lawsuits and charges nipping at his heels. Somehow, this actually worked. The firm representing Mallory Beach's family withdrew the suit, with the understanding a civil jury would never side against a man who'd lost his wife and son. A representative from the Murdaugh firm similarly verified no one had the heart to press Alec about his embezzlement after the murders. Alec's defense argued that he was innocent of murder, but spurred to lie, cheat, and steal by a drug addiction that had him taking 2,000 milligrams of oxycodone per day. While it cannot be overstated the pain and grief opioid addiction has inflicted upon countless souls, just 80 milligrams of oxycodone a day likely would have sent Alec to the hospital with severe constipation. After hundreds of hours of testimony across a 45-day trial, it would take less than 3 hours for the jury to return a verdict. On March 2, 2023, Alec was sentenced to life in prison without parole for murdering his wife and son. You won't be surprised to hear that he's already launched an appeal and is yet to face the music for a litany of criminal charges and civil lawsuits. But for Maggie, a generous woman remembered as a second mum to her son's friends, and Paul, a sorely missed brother and friend despite his own grievous decisions, they've at least heard the last of Alec Murdaugh.